The Vision of the Anointed. Now that's an interesting title. Who are the anointed?
They are the elite in the media, in politics, all of those who think that third parties ought to be making people's decisions for them. The subtitle is Self-Congratulation as a Basis for Social Policy. In other words, people who think that everything that's wrong with the country is due to the fact that other people are just not as smart as they are. And if only they could, or people like them could take over and make our decisions, we'd be so much better off.
But in early America, didn't this sort of educated class make the decisions for everybody?
As far as governmental decisions,
yeah.
But the government itself didn't make the decisions for everyone. Now, you can't decide where your kid's going to school. You can't decide whether or not they can move a halfway house for drug users next door to you or whatnot.
It's out of your control. The government decides
That's
that
right.
stuff.
The government decides too many things. They decide also how your children are to be raised. You may have an idea about at what age children should be introduced to sex, and in what manner, with what kind of moral commitments.
You mean as a parent?
As a parent, yes. The schools have taken that over. By the time you even think about it, they've already had years, of showing.
They're passing out condoms to these kids.
Passing out condoms is not even the half of it. They're showing motion pictures of naked couples engaging in sex, both homosexual and heterosexual, in the 7th grade. And if you complain about it, that's considered to be censorship.
You can't pull your kid out of school and say they don't have to put up with this stuff? I guess you could,
No.
but you'd be...
Well, if you have a private school to put him in, but you have compulsory attendance laws, and if you don't have the money for private schools, then you're stuck.
Where did this country get off the track and decide that the federal government should make most of our decisions?
Well, it started to some extent in the New Deal, but I think the 1960s is sort of the golden age, if you want to put it that way, of this whole mindset. And that's what the book's about. It's about a mindset. It's not about a series of policies, but of showing how in policy after policy, those who think a certain way will try to take over other people's decisions.
Businesses have done more to reduce poverty than all the intellectuals combined.
Oh, no question about it. The only thing that will reduce poverty is wealth. And the people who create the wealth reduce the poverty.
And what do intellectuals create?
Confusion.
Though Tom Sowell is certainly an intellectual himself, he spent a lifetime cutting through that confusion by subjecting popular policies and ideas to the harsh light of day.
How do the anointed refer to people they don't agree with?
All sorts of ways, but I think the main thing is they believe that you're not merely in error but in sin. In other words, they can't believe that you're just mistaken. You must have sold out. You must be something warped about you.
Do people think you sold out because you're conservative?
Oh, some do. Some do. I'm always fascinated with that phrase. First time I heard it was at Cornell University, and I attacked the president of Cornell University on the front page of the New York Times. I wondered, now, if I'm selling out, who am I selling out to if I'm attacking the president of Cornell University? What brownie points will I get for that as an assistant professor on a 3-year contract?
Yeah, that's not good. Yeah.
No. And the other thing that always gets me is that the people who are supposed to have sold out typically have less money than the ones who are making the accusation. Years ago,
That's always true.
I remember some student wrote to me and I said, what you need to do is make a list of all the blacks on your campus that you think have sold out. And then make a list of those you think you have stood up for the right thing, you see. And then alongside each name, put down the name and model of car that they drive. And then see if you want to reconsider what you've just said.
What were you trying to accomplish with the book, and did you do it? Were you nailing liberals for 30 years of social policy? What were you trying to say?
I was trying to reveal the thinking behind that, the kinds of assumptions, the kind of world that exists inside their mind, and therefore why those assumptions are so dangerous in the long run. It's not just the policies mentioned in that
They
book.
think they're better than everybody else.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question. And that's what makes them dangerous. Even all the policies that are mentioned there, 20 years from now, those policies may not be the policies we're concerned about. But that mindset will still be there. And what makes them tremendously dangerous is that facts that contradict what they believe are simply ignored or evaded.
Where does the press fall into this as the anointed group? Are they part of the anointed?
Oh, absolutely. They're a major part of it, because one of the reasons that people don't get many of the facts that go against what's believed is that the press doesn't choose to publicize those facts.
Give me an example of something the press might not cover or cover well.
Oh, a few years ago, there was a story about prenatal care among blacks, that black women get less prenatal care than white women. Infant mortality rate is higher among blacks. They immediately assume that one causes the other. One of the things I like to do is go back to the original source and find out what it said. I went back. On the very same page where it said that, the figures showed Mexican Americans get even less prenatal care than blacks, and they have a lower infant mortality rate than whites. So prenatal care and infant mortality rate have nothing to do with each other. If you break it down further, black women who have only a high school education, but who are married, their children have lower infant mortality rates than white women who have a college education, who are unwed mothers. So it's not race, it's not income, it's not education, it's lifestyle. When you live a certain way, there are consequences to that. The media doesn't want to accept that. Because if you say people's lifestyles have a lot to do with the outcome, then there's no room for the anointed.
You know, it's amazing. You've had so much education, and yet a lot of the anointed are the educated types, the ones who've been college professors, right?
That's true. Typically in the non-scientific areas. Sociology, history, humanities, heaven help us.
Yeah. Who are the mascots of the anointed? You talk about the mascots of the anointed.
They're people whom they choose to back and whose rights are supposed to override other people's rights. The homeless are a classic example. I'm appalled when I see people out there in the street giving money to the home. I mean, able-bodied men. I think one of the classic pictures to me, it was in San Francisco, when there was this able-bodied white man out in the street begging, and there's this black lady coming along there, very modestly dressed, like she didn't have, but she's stopping to open her purse to give him some money, you know. And I thought, good heavens, have we really come to this? And we've been brainwashed by the anointed into thinking this is what we ought to do.